Another edition of Riding Home. Dean Legge and Ryan Curley, our friends from EcoPoly, are helping us get this together and out there for everybody to see. So thanks for them. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let me bring Ryan in. You know, it's the SEC East is essentially on the line here. You've got 7-1 Missouri coming in to take on 8-0 Georgia. Mizzou offered their best start since 2013, which coincidentally is the only time they've beaten Georgia in SEC play. Ryan, this is a big week for the Dogs as well as Missouri. And, Mizzou just had a week off, and Georgia had an emotional win over Florida.
Yeah, and Missouri went to the SEC championship that year in 13. So that's on the line for them again this season. If you ask Kirby Smart, there's not a quarterback in the country that's playing, or in the SEC that's playing much better than Brady Cook. They've got a good offense, and, their defense was a little bit of the discussion today as far as, that's improved a little bit since they played LSU and let up, like 50 points to LSU? Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Look, it's tough to win games if you're allowing that many points to a good offense. And that might be kind of the biggest thing about this week is, can they stop Georgia's offense more so than can they score on Georgia?
Yeah. Look, they play they out of conference. They played a pretty good out of conference, to be honest. I mean, Memphis is a pretty good team. They didn't play great against Memphis in St. Louis. They obviously won on the last play of the game against Kansas State. The Middle Tennessee game was not great for me, but from the time that they came in SEC play, Ryan, they played pretty well. I mean, they beat Vanderbilt 38-21. They lost to LSU 39-49. They beat Kentucky, which to me might be their best kind of performance of the season, beating them 38-21. And then they were all over South Carolina, scoring 34-12. But for me, what concerns me for Missouri are a couple of different things. First of all, that LSU scored 50 on you at home is concerning in a big way for me. And then there's been times when Missouri's offense has not been unbelievable, but that was really more at the beginning of the season. But finally, on this front, they're not spectacular on any one thing. Missouri, their offense is really good though. But again, if you're going to average 7 penalties a game and you've had one true road game, which was at Kentucky, that's red lights flashing for me. I had sirens and saw all that. I mean, they're coming into a very hostile situation. It's going to be really tricky for Missouri to win this game.
Yeah, a lot of times there are good reasons for things, and there's a reason why the line in this game is really big. And Georgia's playing really well right now, but as far as Missouri's offense goes, they've got the weapons. They've got Luther Burden, who everyone wants to talk about, and yeah, he is one of the best wide receivers in college football. Theo Wee's playing really well, and the running back Schrader, been around a long time, a guy that had a really, really big play against Georgia last year that was stopped by Malachi Starks. But they've got plenty of people. Brady Cook's been around for a long time. I think this is the third year in a row that he'd start against Georgia. Right? He started that game back in 2021, or he was out there at least back in 2021. So he's been around for Missouri for a long time.
Well, he's good, man. You're talking about the quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm. Brady Cook, yeah.
Yeah, he plays well. They protect him. He's a good player, and Georgia's not just going to go out here and, thump their way to a win. They're going to have to really compete against Missouri. This stretch is a tough stretch for the Dogs. But I think, when you look at Mizzou just holistically, their offense, they can really throw it, Ryan. Now, running the ball, they're okay. I mean, it's not like they are throwing it. They're much better throwing the football than they are running. I mean, they're almost 300 yards a game throwing it.
Yeah. Look, no one's going to go into Athens and run all over Georgia. I just have a hard time seeing that anyway. So it's going to have to be through the air for them to get it done. Something that I have kind of always noticed, Kirby's always praising and always has something positive, as they should, right? In these press conferences, be overall kind of positive towards people. I think he's always been a little bit extra positive compared to other SEC coaches about Eli Drinkowitz.
Yeah, they're buddies.
And do you remember last year when we were down there and under the tunnel? they had a very long conversation, all smiles. So they're buddies. They're buddies. And this game last year ended up being one of the most important of the entire season for Georgia. One of the ones where we learned the most about them. And they all agree. They said it over and over last year how this game shaped their season and helped them for Ohio State. That was brought up again today.
Yeah, and you don't ever know in a year what moment or however you want to call it can define a season or can get you where you got to go. This season, we'll see with Missouri. It's very possible that that Georgia has played its most complicated game, which was against Auburn. Um, and they were in a very serious bind at the half against South Carolina. That's possible too. That might be like their most challenging situation. We don't know, but when you look at last year, you and I were both there. It was cold, or it got cold. I'm trying to remember.
It got chilly.
It got chilly,
It got chilly.
and I
I was
don't think
getting sick, which I'm getting now.
what now. You got sick.
This is, you know what I mean. Just the seasonal allergies is that's when it decided to hit me was at the beginning of that game.
Um, you know, Missouri is not a difficult place to play, but it's and in a way, every place that Georgia goes, there's a little different vibe there. And I think with Missouri, it's such a long trip out there. Um, and you don't think about Missouri. I think that's part of it too. But they they have done a good job, Missouri, of trying to catch up with the rest of the league in a lot of things. And we saw that with facilities at Missouri, and now we're seeing it on the field. And with Burden being there, Cook is a very good offensive guy, quarterback. There, this I don't know that this is the best Missouri team that we've seen. I think the 14 team was really good that they had, and they just got overpowered by Georgia and Columbia that day. And then the 13 Mizzou team was really good, but this is the best team they've had since then, and they've really not had much to think about in that time. It's really been Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. That's been really taking the attention of Missouri in the football world. But this Missouri team's got a shot. I mean, I was there in 13. Georgia played horrible, and Missouri was really good at one thing: rushing the passer, and that they took advantage of that. Georgia was abnormally beat up that day. You can't compare 10 years ago to now, but there is, Georgia was sleepwalking. They were just trying to get through the Missouri game at that moment to get to just a break. And that was a pretty good Missouri team, a team that went on to win the division. It wasn't a strong division that year, but went on to win the division. Georgia's not in that position right now. They're the number one team in the country. They are lethal on offense. I'm allowed to say lethal. I mean, they're scoring 41 points a game, Ryan. It's the typical Georgia score is 41-15. I don't know if I think that's going to be the score this week, but I could see 42-24. I mean, Georgia is playing really well right now, and I'll stop talking. When you start thinking about the Kentucky game, go watch the Vanderbilt game. They played well, and then obviously against Florida, so they're playing well. And I wrote after Vanderbilt, they're playing better than y'all think, and they've proven that lately. Now, will that happen on Saturday? I don't know.
Yeah, it goes back to the game-winning drive against Auburn. That's
Yep,
kind of when it started for Georgia. I think that's a huge momentum boost. But it starts with the players. It starts with the talent, and Missouri's got some talent right now.
they
They
do.
had talent 10 years ago. I remember those guys on the defensive line and those outside linebackers 10 years. They were good.
They were.
And I think that one of our takeaways a year ago when there was so much that went on that day, but I think one of our takeaways a year ago was, hey, this Missouri defense is a little bit better than advertised. Like that was a tough defense, and maybe there was just a lot that went into that game, but it's they're gonna have to outscore Georgia because they're gonna have to outscore Georgia and win this game, and I think that's gonna be a huge challenge for people when Georgia's defense is really talented as well.
Here's the thing, like you've been I don't know, you've been to like 40 Georgia games in a covering capacity, at least something like that. I think what in the current Kirby era of Georgia, they can just jump you so quick. And it doesn't have to be at the start of games. It can be in the middle or in the third. That's the part that's so dangerous for Missouri is, at what point is Georgia going to just like wham, get like 20 points in a matter of 7 minutes? And like it's hard to survive that. That's the hard part.
Yeah, they've done that multiple times this year, and I'm starting to mix up the
Yeah.
cupcake games at the beginning of the year. It's starting to get far away, but there was like a 28-point burst in one of the quarters. I think it was UT Martin, second
In
quarter,
the third quarter of
or third
UT
quarter.
Martin, second
And then
quarter
Ball
of Ball
State, it
State.
was the second quarter
Yeah.
where they just exploded. Against Kentucky, it was right there from the jump.
Yeah.
Where we're just going to go, 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 go.
Well, and honestly, against Florida, it was like that.
It was. I mean, once they started scoring, they kept scoring for 36 points in a row without letting Florida score. And Missouri's better than Florida. Just
Well,
they're a better
we
team.
think so. I mean, like
I agree.
So Missouri. The other challenge for Mizzou is that I pretty much think they should have won all the games that they played. I mean, like Kansas State, that was a good win, and I think Kentucky was a good win. Like they weren't supposed to beat LSU, and LSU clawed their way back and won. This is who they close with, man. They close with the Dogs, Tennessee at home, Florida at home, and then Arkansas. Now they should win probably two of those games, maybe, but certainly one against Arkansas. But you're asking them to like Missouri's going to probably have to win out to win the division, and I think that's asking too much of Missouri personally. But that's a tough close right there. Are they better than Florida? We're going to see.
I think they're better than Florida. Just from what I've watched, I think they're better than Florida. I think they're a little bit more consistent.
They're more consistent than Florida, yeah.
Missouri very well could end up 10-2. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say that that's what's going to happen.
Well, who is the second loss? Just Georgia. So you think they roll out?
Yeah, I think this is their only loss left.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll survive the back-to-back-to-back with Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. Frankly, I mean,
it's tough. I mean, any of those games, but they're at home.
They are at home, which I think Listen, that was
ready
a fun.
For that third down music, man.
Well, in the Missouri Waltz, like you've got to deal with all that.
Can't do that.
It's not.
Vanderbilt's got the same thing too.
And we got to work on some of this stuff, but I mean, I'm just glad this game's not in Columbia. That would make it more. It would make it more challenging for Georgia. This is going to be a hard game for Missouri to win. Now, how do they win it?
They got to outscore them. They've got to outscore them. Look, we can do. I mean, it's the same thing. Turnovers. Georgia's going to end up shooting themselves in the foot a lot more and making mistakes if Missouri's going to win this game.
Okay.
And that's going to be the case, I think, for any Georgia loss.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times out of 10, if Georgia was to lose a game, that we'd say it was because they just got outplayed.
Well, not with these players. I mean, no. I mean, I think my favorite part about Kirby, frankly, is after the games, of course, he always said, "Well, we just have better players." Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
I'm not judging that. He gets credit for that.
That's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah, they're there because of him. And I was watching something from and I'm not trying to run a guy down. I'm really not. But I was watching the guy from Florida from the spring. The defensive coordinator starts talking about all this mumbo jumbo and 16,000 ways to say we're gonna be really good at everything. And again, I'm not trying to run them down, but you need players. If you don't have players, forget it. Because I mean, I say this a lot. I talk about this a lot. I remember the first year of college sports for me, plural, both. And if you didn't have the guys, there was nothing your coach or coaches could do to save you. It's too late then. And I think what has given me I guess you'd call it confidence. What I think should be concerning for the rest of college football now is that, are we gonna continue to talk about Brock Bowers? Like, that is the dumbest thing to talk about now. The thing about Georgia is they do it every day, and they're consistent. Like, there's no surprises here. It's not surprising that Jamon Dumas-Johnson had a good day against Florida, because at some point he was going to have a really good day, right? Is it really surprising?
He did against Kentucky.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I don't even know why am I singling out any player? right?
It's
So
just an example. I mean,
right, exactly. And then if it's not Jamon Dumas Johnson, it's Smile Munden doing what he did, blowing up a play where, hey man, just punt the ball, okay? I know, I know. I kind of
or block the people on the
or
punt.
block when you are punting. Yeah, block them. So it really does, as you just pointed out, come down to, do you have the players and are you going to execute? Do you have the players as recruiting? Are you going to execute as development and coaching? Georgia does all of that every single day. It's not confusing at all. My wife and I had a discussion after I got back from Jacksonville about Clemson. They're not doing what you need to do to win every single day. And I mean, if four
How
and
many
four is
programs are?
how
How
many
many, if you were to guess, how many do you think are?
that are doing it right all the time, definitely Alabama, Georgia, Alabama. I mean, right now I would say Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. I think Florida State is pointed right at that. Um,
Oregon?
Oregon sure seems like it, but Dan's got to quit making mistakes like he does in game.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's not there yet. Um, it's not a big list.
It's
I,
that exactly.
so
That
I
that
would
was my
say
point.
So
That
I
was
would
my point.
say I watched some of the NASCAR race yesterday. It's not surprising that the Hendrick cars are always are always there to win it. If you don't know NASCAR, that's fine. They're the dominant team. And why? Why are they always good? Well, they have the best drivers, they have the best cars, and then they totally know what they're doing. Why is like who are good? Who's a good NFL organization? Well, the Philadelphia Eagles have been a good organization for a quarter century. I don't know. And then, the Chiefs have been really good as an organization for a long time. Are we going to say that about the Panthers? I'm not even going
That's
anywhere
fine. No,
else.
do it. Yeah. Keep them out your mouth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we're not even going anywhere else. We're not going to talk about the Cardinals or any other
Oh,
bird that's in the league. So, I mean, Kirby and them, this is I don't want to say it's an unhealthy. I think it's are you doing what you're supposed to do every single day? Are you getting the links in the story? Are you doing the right this? Are you doing the right that? Are we prepared, so that when something bad happens, can we get around it, or whatever? They're doing it all the time. And so can they lose to Missouri? Yeah, they can. Why? Because bad things happen. Go ahead, Ryan. I mean,
because they can. I mean, they can go in there and not play well,
or
or
Missouri can
someone
play
might
really
not be doing
well.
their job, like your point, or what not calling anyone out. What if Jamon Dumas Johnson's not doing his job?
Right.
I mean, and at the end of the day, that's why people score on Georgia. Is someone probably just didn't do their job right, and
Yeah. Or you're like, okay, against Florida, I've not watched the game yet, but something happened on that. I mean, it was not dissimilar from the way that Vanderbilt did it. So they're gonna be some changes here. But all I could think was during the first quarter, I was like, man, if you think you're gonna screen your way to beat these guys the whole game, like that's not happening. And it did not. And when you looked up at the half and there's 22 yards rushing for the Gators, I mean, like, is Missouri, you are not gonna just throw it on Georgia and win. So you're gonna have
that's the problem. It's just
okay.
it's so rare that a team can succeed in both against
Well,
Georgia.
I mean,
It just doesn't happen.
Ohio State could last year. I don't
Yeah,
know if
and they
and they
lost.
lost because they couldn't run enough. And I wonder this year if they can do both. See, I'm not
And you
so
have to do
sure.
it for 4 quarters too.
Right. And
That's the
and
other thing. You got to beat Georgia for 4 quarters. That was the issue with Ohio State. They didn't do it the entire game. They didn't win the entire game. And when you're playing a team that's this good, you have to win the entire game, I think.
but Cook can move well enough
He
that
can,
go ahead.
yeah. I mean, the Kirby said today he's got pretty much everything you want out of a
He's
quarterback. He's
good.
got mobility, he's got
Yeah,
accuracy, he's got experience and good decision making.
he's good.
He's one of the best quarterbacks in college football.
Yeah, but
I mean,
nobody. I agree. I actually agree with that. Like, and there's a lot of really good college football quarterbacks right this second.
yeah, I think we're in a good spot.
He's really good, and like, I can't. I don't know if I know enough about him to compare him to Carson, but he doesn't seem to do a lot of dumb stuff. I mean, he plays well. I don't think he's as sort of gifted as maybe some of these high level guys are, but I don't know. I might, he plays the position the right way, and that's important.
He's got good numbers. I mean, he's got similar numbers to Carson. They're very
Right. I
similar.
mean, it's
Yeah.
not, and he doesn't have Brock Bowers. I
He's got Luther Burden though. That guy is
yeah,
good.
I mean, that guy's the real deal for sure. I mean, if
They
you want,
they've got skill. The running back is good. He's not this world beater, but um,
but I
they
think,
they've got guys that have been around.
well, they don't get
This is
sacked.
not just a super young Missouri team.
They don't get
A
sacked a
lot of their
lot
players have been
either.
around.
Florida did, and but there are moments here that are problematic. If you're Missouri, you're gonna have to really be able to run. They're not unbelievable in the run game. Okay, they're fine. You're gonna have to keep it clean in terms of penalties. They're bad at that. Like that's a problem. So you couple that with going on the road, and you're gonna have to go silent count. I mean, like all
Mm.
that stuff.
It's gonna be loud.
Yeah, all that stuff adds up. See, and once that former wine and cheese crowd smells blood in the water, they go from Alpharetta to I don't want to insult it. They go to Tucker. Okay, so everybody else,
You can
yeah,
insult.
everybody knows that I can insult where I
Yeah.
came from. They go from full on North Fulton to like DeKalb, and like we're ready to fight. So that's how that crowd can change.
You know who else they still have? They've got the thicker kicker.
He's good, man, and he
He's
kept.
actually only six. He's 13 for 19 on field goals.
Yeah, but
That's
he kept him in that game last year.
68.4 is not great, Dean.
No, it's not. But he kept him in that game last year.
He
Uh,
balled out. That was
I mean, he did ball out, and obviously he won the Kansas State game for them with just a
yeah.
vicious kick from midfield. But
That's a weapon. That's a weapon.
they do. But I personally, if Georgia plays the way that they've been playing lately, even with the turnovers, they're not going to lose. But if Missouri starts confusing Carson Beck, if they can stop the run, if you start talking about an injury, or Georgia has turnovers, or there's a special teams play, there's stuff that can happen, and we saw it at the end of last year too, man. I mean, you thought the way that Georgia played against Kentucky last year, against Mississippi State, these were on the road, but like they had that free touchdown for State when on that punt return.
Oh, at the end of the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean that put them right in the middle of the game, and then with Kentucky, that was weather conditions. So there's stuff that can happen, but Missouri's going to have to really play well, and they have played better lately, but they are playing LSU but better right now, and they lost LSU. Really, they lost LSU by 3, if we're being honest, but they lost to them by 10. So it's going to be challenging for them, to be sure.
Is this? I mean, I still think this is the best team Georgia's played so far. Will be Missouri.
Well, it looks like it right now, but
It doesn't mean that I think it's going to be a close game, but I think this is probably Georgia's toughest test so far. I mean, on paper for sure.
Well, they definitely handled Kentucky, Missouri.
And look, I was never really all about Kentucky, so that was
well, understandably, and we've seen this though with other programs. Ole Miss has fallen prey to this. Kentucky, North Carolina, they get out to good starts and then they just sort of fall apart. I don't know that Ole Miss is going to be in that snare. I fully expect them to beat A&M this week and come to Athens as a top 10 team, and we'll just see. But
it looks like that's going to be at night.
I think it's going to be at 3:30.
You think so?
Yeah, because if Georgia
is there is there a rule for how many of those you can have?
No, so let me just dispel this rumor again.
Okay.
It's okay because it's a common misconception. There years ago was I don't know if I'd even call it a rule, but sort of an agreement. It could have been a rule or it was an agreement. I don't know, but you could only play 5 SEC games on CBS a year. That's not been the case for years, and there were caveats then anyway. So, like, for instance, going by the old rules, the CBS game on Vanderbilt, the noon game, that wouldn't count. This game right here, it would not count against the 5. So you could quickly get to 7 and not break any rules. So I know a particular person you're talking about, and I'm not going to name, that throws this out a lot. They don't know what they're talking about. So these 2 games are not CBS A-team games, so they don't count anyway. But that doesn't matter because it's not a real thing. Alabama.
Yeah, because the one against Vandy was not, and this one's not either.
Correct, but
it doesn't count,
forget
right?
Forget all that. Alabama played 6 games on CBS in 2015. There's not been a 5-game rule for a long time. People simply don't know what they're talking about. They just say it. They don't do real reporting, and it's fine. But that's it aggravates me because I actually really do follow the television stuff pretty closely, and people just don't know what they're talking about. Now, with that said, if Ole Miss or Georgia loses, then that game probably becomes a night game. But you're going up against I think it's LSU. Who is it again? I just posted
On
it.
the 11th.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
not great.
it's Ole Miss. It's Ole Miss, Georgia, LSU,
Florida, LSU.
Florida, LSU, which would be a primary. But those two teams are not. LSU's going to have to beat Alabama, and then the third game was I think Missouri, Tennessee. So none of those. I mean, CBS is going to take a top 10 matchup. Period. That's it. That's all there is to it. And then the Georgia Tennessee game, I would be floored if that's not on CBS. I mean,
That's a lot. Yeah,
it would be shocking if that were.
I think they're gonna have a month in a row on CBS at 3:30.
Yeah, and like that's
Which is
just
who cares?
well, when you are a pompous turd ball, everybody wants, you want to be, you're the guy that's right, but you're not. I mean, like, you know what you're talking about. So, yeah, Georgia's going to be on CBS as much as possible. I think one question is, what time will they play Georgia Tech? Because it's always assumed that game is at noon. And my suspicion is it will be at noon on ABC, but I don't know. But you've got two spots, really, really three, where you can put Georgia against Tech at noon, which would be ABC, ESPN, ESPN2. You're talking about the number one team in the country, in theory, at that time. So
yeah, I guess we'll find out tomorrow or today.
Not for Tech.
This drops.
Yeah, that rivalry weekend is a little bit weird. Tech and Georgia have not played at night since 2010. So it's been a long time.
I feel like it's been at noon for
a long time.
For as long as my memory of college football is, kind of there to where I can remember for sure. It's been at noon pretty much every year.
So 13 was at 3:30 on ABC. And then 12 was at noon. And then 11 was early, but 10 was at night in Athens, and 9 was ABC primetime because Tech was top 10. They didn't have a great game, so they threw that on at night. Georgia shocked them. So, and then the year before that, it was on CBS, 2008 at 3:30. So this game, and then this game, has been Georgia Tech. We got a month before Georgia Tech, but still, I think you're going to see CBS. And then we'll see what ABC, if they can get Georgia, they're putting Georgia on television, period. But
I think if anyone can get the number one team in the country in a brand like Georgia, they're going to try to do that.
If they could get Alabama, ABC would have. That's why they're paying all this money for these guys. But anyway, I think Georgia, we're just going to see, Ryan, how this goes for Georgia and Mizzou. But I've got Georgia winning it. I don't know if I got them covering or not, but we'll just see. Thanks for watching. Go ahead. You got one more thing?
TBD on the cover. TBD.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks for watching.